Hi, my name's Liz Hobman and I'm from CSIRO. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Today I'll be presenting findings from a longitudinal study where we looked at fluctuating climate change risk perceptions among residents living in the Great Barrier Reef region across a decade time period. The work is in collaboration with my colleagues at CSIRO. I'm sorry. Oh, there they are. And also colleagues from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority and James Cook University. So we all are aware that 99% of climate scientists agree that climate change is real and primarily driven by human activity, yet societal acceptance of this reality remains considerably lower. So this graph illustrates the gap between the scientific consensus and public belief, and it's that gap which has important implications for climate action. But beyond belief, concern is actually a more critical factor, because when you have concern, it is something that will stimulate or motivate people into action. So here we see that around 70 to 75% of Australians express concern about climate change, while 25 to 30% are less or not concerned at all. Importantly, what we can see here with this graph is that concern levels vary not only between individuals, but also over time. And this variability is what led us to explore perceptions more deeply in the context of the Great Barrier Reef in particular. So here in our study, we sought to do a focused assessment of residents' perceptions of climate change risk, specifically whether they believe climate change is a threat to the Great Barrier Reef. And we asked two general questions. Do those perceptions change over time? And secondly, does trust in science have a relationship with those perceptions? And how does that relationship change over time too? So the reason why we examine trust in science is because previous literature has indicated that it's a pretty strong correlate of climate change beliefs, and it is something that we can conceivably influence in terms of improving trust in science. So we use data from our CellTemp survey. So I am part of the CellTemp team along with Matt. And these surveys were conducted from 2013 to 2023, and we surveyed almost 7,000 residents who had visited the reef in the past year. So it was a subsample. We measured two key constructs: climate change risk perceptions using a 5-option scale ranging from outright denial to a strong belief in climate change as a threat requiring immediate action. And trust in information about the Great Barrier Reef from scientists was rated on a 1 to 10 point scale, with higher scores indicating greater trust. And these measures were kept reasonably consistent across all of those time points. So coming to our results, first in terms of climate change risk perceptions, what we can see here, so 2013 is on the bottom and 2023 is on the top there. We can see that climate change risk perceptions increased from 2013 to 2017, but then they declined from 2017 to 21 and again into 2023. And those shifts that we observed were most pronounced at the extremes. So among those people who believed climate change was a threat requiring immediate action, and then on the opposite end of the spectrum, among those who deny climate change is affecting the Great Barrier Reef. I would, however, like to point out one positive finding from this, and it only recently came to me while I was looking at it just in the last week, and that is of those who do believe climate change is a threat, we're now seeing that most of them think that immediate action is required. But overall, we're still seeing this concerning trend of growing disbelief in climate change as a threat, unfortunately. Looking now to trust. So this is just basic descriptives to begin with. And what we can see here, again, is of concern, a similar trend where trust in information about the Great Barrier Reef from scientists is declining since 2021. We're seeing that drop off. And that growing distrust in information is concerning, particularly because we know it has that strong relationship with climate change beliefs. So we also looked at that relationship. between trust and climate change risk perceptions. And here we did like an ordered logistical regression. It might look a little bit complicated, but it's not. So basically, I'll take it. Oh, sorry about the formatting problem. What we found here is that trust became a stronger predictor of climate change beliefs over time. And you can see that by the odds ratio in those values around the graphs. So for example, in 2021, an odds ratio of 1.72 means that for a 1 unit increase in trust, it's associated with a 72% greater likelihood of stronger climate change risk perceptions. Okay, so we're seeing in 2021, it was very, very strong, also in 2023, whereas in those early years, it was strong, but not as strong as we're seeing in the latter 2 years. Now, looking at those predicted probabilities in the actual coloured graphs, I'll just give you a few scenarios here. If we look at the far left-hand side of each of those graphs, they're the respondents who have no trust in information about the GBR, okay? So those people there are now far more likely to express disbeliefs. That's that dark orange gradient you're seeing there. In 2021 and 2023, it's quite a big amount on the chart, whereas in the earlier years, that dark orange on the left-hand side was quite small. Medium trust individuals, they're also tending to show greater disbelief in more recent years, but they're also expressing increased uncertainty and a desire for more information in order to make an opinion. So that's the light tan coloured region. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the high trust individuals. So they tend to consistently support immediate action from 2017. So that's that dark green on the right-hand side of the chart. Sorry if you're a little bit lost, but I promise you it's not as complicated as it looks if you sit down and go through it. But the basic take-home message from all of our results so far is that the declining trust that we're seeing in scientists that we've observed in recent times appears to be linked to growing climate change denialism. So you might be asking me, but I don't have all the answers. What can explain these fluctuations? And, you know, we are the Brains Trust here, so I'd really be opening up to you guys as well to help me sort of explain these fluctuations. But one hypothesis we have is media representations of climate events for the Great Barrier Reef might be influencing people's perceptions. So in those years of back-to-back coral bleaching in 2016 and 17, there was really widespread media coverage and it was very negative and sensationalized. So that may have contributed to the spike in concern that we saw in 2017. And even though there were coral bleaching events after that, from 2018, there was broader sort of a social media campaign that emerged, which was questioning the science underpinning the reef, and that could have affected people's perceptions there. And also in the broader socio-political environment from 2020, associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, there was this growing sort of skepticism about science in general, and that might have also eroded public trust. So these are just hypotheses. We don't have any empirical data to support this, but that's certainly what we're seeing in the sort of the context while these surveys were occurring. Going forward, it will be interesting to see how things change in 2025 because we're about to repeat the survey in November, just in a couple of months' time. So yeah, it will be it's a watching brief as to how things will change, and I'll be rerunning the analysis again. In terms of practical applications, I guess there's one really big one, and that's that restoring trust and maintaining trust in scientific information in research institutions appears to be a key pathway to quell that sort of rising denialism that we're observing in recent times. And that there's lots of things that we can do. Matt Kernock's paper, Finding Common Ground, gives some ideas of how we can actually take some steps to improving the trust that people have in our scientific information. And then there's some future research ideas. So I'm interested to explore whether the denialism we're seeing about climate change also translates to whether people are now denying that the reef is reef's health is declining fundamentally. You know, so talk about the problem more than climate change, because I feel as though the term is becoming so politicized and people just have that really visceral reaction to it. Okay. Okay, sorry. It was like, cut. The other thing that I was looking at in future surveys was whether there are other threats we can talk about to sort of that are more shared across the community. So things like plastic pollution, it might be a foot in the door technique to, you know, get the buy-in from a broader range of people in the community. Okay, thank you very much. Invite anyone to come and have a chat to me.